when they came to my cell after 5 years, I became eligible. I refused to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gave me a 2-year set off, and they came back 2 years later. I refused again, and then on until I was just out. Because I just wanted to be done with it. I was already acclimated, and I would see guys coming back, and I was like, that just ripped your heart out to have to come back.
Right.
Like, I want to be done, and I want to.
So you actually chose to stay in prison, confined. Wow.
Yeah,
Hard man.
You can say that, but at the same time, it's not like they were really seriously going to let me out.
You don't think they were going to let you out? Yeah.
A parole, a gang member? That's not. Because as far as they're concerned, I still am. Even though they know I'm not.
Right.
On paper, I still am.
Okay.
So there's no way. So but I did think it was better for me to just go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, and then now you don't have anybody to check in with because you have to travel for work, and it's just.
Well, you see all the guys coming back for what they call technical parole violations. You just didn't check in.
Right.
You moved when you weren't supposed to. Just some minor thing. And you see them come back to prison for that. And it's like,
yeah, piss test.
So many guys I knew that got their life started and started a career, maybe had a little contracting business, doing some kind of welding or something. And now they're back. And they will tell you, like, man, I had to go to West Texas on a last minute job, and I didn't tell my parole officer. And now, and it's like, dang, now you got to come back to prison.
Yeah.
That sucks. Like, your wife it's just.
Yeah.
So I knew.
Smart. Okay.
I knew if I just bit the bullet.
Yep.
That I could ride it out, and I'd be 27. And I mean, it sucked. Like I said, a 5x9 cell with no air conditioning. And they say they let you out of your cell once a day for rec, but every year that I was in there, they were, quote, understaffed. And so we would come out of our cells maybe 2 or 3 times a month. The whole time I was in SEG, rec was rare. It was a little more common at first, but the last 4 or 5 years I was there, it was so rare to get to come out of your cell at all.
So you're just in a 5x9.
Yep.
All day, every day, week after week, after month after month.
Yep.
Did you see guys going crazy in there?
Yeah. Yeah. Suicides are pretty common.
Right.
Saw a guy, so the worst one on that was there was this guy, and he was a little bit off, you could tell. He was on one row down beneath me, and they come by and they serve chow in your cell tray through the door, and then they come back and they give you this little cup, and they'll pour some of this crappy state-issued juice in it, right? It's red Kool-Aid crap. Quit drinking it years ago. And so they didn't bring him his juice. They didn't pour him his juice. So he's yelling over the run, bring me my juice, bring me my juice. And he's got these neighbors, these guys that they're bored. So they're messing with the dude, and they're like, oh yeah, you want your juice, huh? What are you going to do for it? And so he starts banging. Banging is big and sick. You kick the bars or you beat on the metal bunk, and it makes this huge loud sound to get the guards to come see what's going on. So he's banging, and the guards are ignoring him. And so his neighbors go, well, if you're real serious, if you really want your juice, you'll cut on yourself. And he did it. They gassed him up, and he busted open a razor, and I don't know how or where, but he cut on himself. And so then they're like, go ahead and tell him. And so he's hollering over the run, I cut myself. And then the guards aren't coming. So he's still yelling it. So then his neighbors start banging to cover up his screaming.
Right.
Because as this is going on, he starts getting scared because he's bleeding a lot.
He's actually bleeding.
Yeah, he's bleeding. And so he's like, help, help. And they're banging louder so nobody can hear him screaming. And they're laughing. And then, he'd get quiet. And so they'd stop and they'd be like, hey, beat on the wall. Hey, you alive over there? You still bleeding? And he, help me. And no, bang, 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 bang. And they laugh and laugh. And he died.
Oh.
He died, man. He bled out over a cup of state-issued juice. That dude died.
That's like one of the worst things I've ever heard. You ever seen that movie Slime? From the 70s. This is a classic British movie about, somebody does that in a scene. It's about like juvenile prisons in England. Brutal back then. Yeah.
Oof,
and this guy cuts himself, but then he decides he doesn't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls out to the guards, and they just ignore him. He just bleeds the fuck out.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, man. It's no that, and you know this. I mean, you figure out it's real. Prison is real, and nobody cares about you. Nobody's going to save you. Like if you mess up, you're going to pay the price.
Yeah.
If every decision you make is going to come back on you and you alone, and nobody cares. Texas prison system is cold and cruel, and they treat you like a cow.
Yeah.
They don't know who you are. The guards don't know you. They don't know your name or care or even want to talk to you at all.
Wow.
They really just leave you alone. They're mad if you even speak to them. You know, if you ask for toilet paper, they might remember to bring it to you.
Right.
You know,
so everything's supposed to be on the inmates that have the jobs as the orderlies and the wherever in medical.
Right. But if you're like a white gang member in SEG and the janitor is black inmate and you need toilet paper, guess you better just wait until there's a white one because you're not going to get toilet paper.
No shit.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. No. Yeah. For sure.
So a black dude will just be like,
there's some are cool. Some people are cool. You know, even people probably wonder like, how are you like a white gang member, Aryan, this and that, and you're in general population and it's majority black. And it's like, it's all how you carry yourself. I mean, my cellies, I never had a white cellmate in general population. But I had one that we didn't get along. We had an issue and we couldn't be in a cell together.
Yeah.
But like I had one that was OG from Fifth Ward, Freddie Jackson. And man, we were really cool. I was senior lieutenant at that time and he was a big shot he wasn't a gang member, but man, we smoked weed together. We'd be on, because you're on lockdown when they do shakedowns or there's riots and you're locked in a cell together. I mean, we can either kill each other or we can sit around and talk about our kids and our families and stuff, you know, and that's, so as long as if you're a man and you're standing on your own, you're good. They don't really look at it like you're some kind of skinhead because Texas white gangs really aren't like that as much as I hear other states where they have actual skinhead gangs.
Right.
I mean, there's some Texas white gangs that could arguably be called that, but definitely not the big ones.
Now, it's been decades, but who do you think is the strongest white gang in Texas prisons today?
Is
it still the ABT?
Probably not, because they all got rounded up by the feds.
Right.
They got busted big time, and I'm sure there's still plenty of them. There was about 3,000 members of ABT when I was in it.
That's huge.
Yes,
that's
they're
huge.
big.
So hence the organization.
They also have the most murders of any Texas prison gang. They have they're top on that list too. But AC was always, Aryan Circle was growing and powerful, and I know they've had their own troubles, but they may have the numbers. I really don't know. Right. ABT, especially after the bust. And the RICO bust, my general got caught up in that.
Okay.
And so as I've mentioned, this happened in 2008, I think, after I was out. I got out in 2005 of prison. Right. And I had been out of the gang since 2000. There was a massive RICO investigation that involved numerous confidential informants. Right. They're supposedly filming a movie about it, starring Scarlett Johansson, called Featherwood, where she plays a Homeland Security confidential informant that was ratted out the whole gang as far as their activities out here in the free world. You can read all about it. There's a bunch of articles.
I remember this. I think because we had a guy on here that we were talking to about that. It was like a whole nationwide bust of everybody that was involved in like the AB, whatever that meant. And so everybody was on lockdown during those trials because they assumed guards were going to end up getting killed. And yeah. So now all of those cats are in the feds.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Even the general that I was under, he got at least 20 more years fed stacked on top of what he already had. And that's the thing about those guys. Like, they don't really get away with anything. You're turning a short-term sentence into a life sentence, into fed sentence, into spending your life in a hole in the ground.
Yeah. Did you see that at all? Like, did you see people like you, short timers, right? People with 10 years, 5 years go in and have to do something that caught them a longer sentence?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, Youngster and then Ghost, and I mean, I can think of a few guys that did work even on Ferguson. You're not getting away with anything. That's, I think people kind of assume, they hear about all this violence and they think, well, it's just like violence, and then you just go back to your cell and continue on. And no, man, you're going to prison inside of prison,
right?
You know, jail inside of jail,
right?
They'll send you right back to court to get a new sentence. If they catch you with drugs or a shank, you do serious violence. A fist fight, no.
Right.
Texas, funny, is one of 2 mutual combat states in the U.S. So fist fight won't get you in trouble, but if you stomp somebody out, But weapons stuff they take real seriously, and so you will go to trial and get a new sentence stacked on top of your current sentence, meaning you get to ride the wheels off of that one before you get to start the next one.
Yeah,
and then you're not. There's different ways to do time. Like if you're a short timer, 15 years or less, you can go to a minimum security unit and you can kind of keep your head down and just get out. But once you start doing stuff like that, you're going to higher custody.
Talk about stabbing
security.
people.
Yep. You're going to higher custody, higher security, more lockdown, less freedom. And it's just sad and lonely and miserable.
Yep.
And, you know, I've seen guys. I had a close by neighbor who's a couple cells down named Rick. I always tell the story of Rick because he was a Mexican guy, and he had been in Ad Seg for 25 years when I met him. And he was there still when I left 6-7 years later. So, and him and Puppet. But the thing about Rick, he was confirmed as a gang member, but he never was one. He was never Emmy. They'll tell you that.
Yeah.
The inmate had great respect for Rick because he never ratted. He never did anything against them, but he got caught up in like a riot or something long ago.
Yeah. And
so they confirmed him and stuck him in a cell. 25 years of isolation. Like, people don't realize what that, I've been out this long and it makes me almost tear up to think about like sitting in a cell in Texas heat, where it's so hot you have to pour water on the floor and lay in it, and it just evaporates in seconds to try and cool off.
Are there any ever like class action lawsuits that are filed?
All the time.
It has to be, right?
All the time.
Yeah.
The thing is, the state will always come back and say it's for inmate security, because all these guys that are in Ad Seg are confirmed gang members who do violence. They're the problem. So to keep everyone safe, these guys don't want to stop doing violence, so we have to put them in a closet and lock the door so they can't hurt other people. And that's they're always going to be their reasoning.
So the gang members will have to like approach them. The leaders will have to approach them and be like, "Hey, we're going to stop. We're going to stop fucking around. If you got to give us something, though."
I can't imagine that they'll ever stop putting people in Ad Seg. I mean, they built entire prisons dedicated just to that. Yeah. Like Estelle, high security and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which
Texas,
is like Pelican Bay or something here.
Sure. But California, you got a lot of, it's just way more liberal. So people win lawsuits and they get, you know, now they've gone the other way with it. Like they're letting cold killers out that have life sentences with no parole. They're, see ya, kicking them out. So
wow.
The pendulum goes way too far the other way too quick. And now you have the situation in our cities. But you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's America is just a country of extremes. And we're fucking stupid. So it's like it's no wonder we can't like find like a happy medium for anything. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, there's ways that they could make prison more useful for society. I always talk about like they starve you. You don't eat enough.
Right.
And it's that hunger that drives so much gambling and hustling. And you're hungry. Like you need food and you need commissary to accomplish that. Of course. And if they take your commissary privileges, then you got to get it somehow or you're just going to be hungry. Yeah. And if they would just feed people more, you'd probably see less violence. Right. But man, in Texas, you can talk to civilians, taxpayers, and they're like, "No, screw those guys. Right, work them to death, starve them, make them sweat, make them die in the heat. Like more inmates die from heat in Texas than I think anything. Like if you Google Texas prison, you're going to get a lot of stories about the heat and people dying from that.
People, right. In their cells even.
In their cell. Yeah, absolutely. And like if you're unhealthy from a lifetime of drug use, you're elderly, or you have a mental disorder that requires certain medications that make you sensitive to heat, like you will die in Texas prison.
Shit. And they'll let you die.
They will let you. They pull the bodies out all the time. Yeah, it's no big deal. To show how brutal Texas prison is from the guards, one time on Ferguson, we're out in the country, it's the complex is self-sufficient. So we have a water well and a septic system and all that. Well, a flood happened and the septic system overflowed into the water well and contaminated the well.
Fuck.
So they had to immediately shut the water off to this 2,000 man prison. I'm in Ad Seg. So they cut the water off with no warning. We didn't have water even to drink for 3 days. And I was on 3-row 36 cell, which is the farthest cell from the front. Miles from any officer. The officers didn't ever even walk down there to check on me, like count once in a while. But, and so you don't know. Of course, they don't tell you anything. So you're like, are we going to get water or are we going to die? And then you have 100 or whatever inmates, grown men, using the toilet that they then can't flush.
Right.
So we're layering toilet paper and baby powder and taking your blanket and sticking it and like putting books and like just trying to seal in this awful smell of days and days of using the bathroom without being able to flush it.
Right.
And then after 3 days, they cut the water on with no warning. You just hear the water start to run in your little sink shitter combo. And what does everybody do? Rush and flush their toilet. What happens when everybody on the one line flushes their toilet? It overflows. So everybody's toilet starts overflowing. And we're on 3-row, thank God. So it's running over and it's pouring down and splattering on 1 row. And those guys in 1 row are screaming, stop flushing. And it's just a shit river of old fermented crap just flowing everywhere. And it's not like you have cleaning supplies.
Right.
It's not like they're going to put a janitor in your cell. You have a rag, like a rag that you use like a hand towel to clean yourself. And you have a bar of hand soap or whatever they sell you or give you. So you have to now, we're standing on our bunks, and it's like turds and toilet paper. So get it all cleaned up. It happened like 3 more times.
Wow.
Over the next few weeks. We were water on and off for a month. We would go days without any water. They'd cut it on. It'd flood. We'd have to clean the whole site. It stunk. The whole place smelled like a porta potty. You know what I mean? Like you go in an old nasty construction site porta potty. That's how the whole prison smelled. And man, until the gang bosses were like, this is how it's going to go. 3-row cells 1 through 6, you can flush your toilets. When those are done, then 7 through, and we all got on a sequence. Yeah. And it finally started to work out. But man, they don't give a damn. They don't care at all. I've seen so much. There was this one guy, called him Old Man Bird. And he was taller than you, at least as tall as you. But I'm talking like 6'7" and like 130 pounds. Just looked like he'd been in a concentration camp. Old black man. He's probably 70 years old. And each block of SEG has isolation cells at the end of 1 row. And an isolation cell has steel welded on the front and a bunk and a toilet, and that's it. And it's, if you're in, because guys that still act up in SEG, they'll dash the guards and spear them, and and so
here's a smaller box.
Yeah, here you go. We're gonna put you in here. And this man lived in those cells, and they'd bring him on your block and somebody go, oh shit, birds on the block. And everybody go, no, because as soon as they locked him in that cell, he would lay on his back on the floor. And with his heels, he would kick the bunk. He would bang.
Yeah.
You know, the bunk's sheet of metal. So it's got some incredible reverberations.
Right.
And he would do it in a non-rhythmic pattern on purpose. So he'd go bang, 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 bang. And he could go for hours, days, nonstop. I'm talking like 18 hours straight. Then he'd, I guess, sleep for a little bit and he'd start all over. He was completely out of his mind,
right.
like not even really human anymore, right?
Of course.
And he would beat on that bunk and you'd toilet paper in your ears, headphones, like, please God, make this stop. And they would leave him until he beat the welds off the bunk.
Right.
He would eventually vibrate the bunk until the welds would start to break. And then they would pull him out, move him to another one, go in there, weld the bunk up, and they just kept him cycling. They'd bring like 10 guards to bring him out. And that poor man had a pair of boxers to his name.
Right.
Butt naked, no property, boxers to your next cell, bang on the bunk. And he'd been doing it for years.
God.
It's really unreal, the stuff that you see in AdSeg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any ever kind of hunger strikes proposed or anything?
So
anything
my
like
neighbor, we talk about the heat, and they let you buy a 10-inch box fan on commissary. So my neighbor, who was also an ex-ABT, his fan burned up. He needed a new one, but he had cussed out the commissary man. They bring you your commissary to your cell.
Yeah.
And he had cussed him out, which is dumbest thing you could possibly do. And so it came time he needed a new fan. He put in the request. He had the money.
Yeah.
I'm bringing you a fan. And so he would beg, like, please, like, people are dying in this heat. Nah, no fan for you. So he went on hunger strike. And mind you, it's like 100-something degrees. And he did not eat. I know because of cell, I can see. He didn't eat for 3 weeks. Not a drop. I mean, he didn't have any commissary to eat because they weren't going to bring him any. And his cell would come. I mean, his tray would come and he'd refuse it. And eventually they bring, Texas is so funny. Hunger strike is against the rules. So it's a disciplinary problem to them.
Right.
You better eat or we're going to take your privileges.
Right.
You better eat. We're going to take your status.
Right. That's why I'm the stupid motherfucker. This is why I'm hunger striking.
Can he just have a fan so he doesn't die? No, you need to comply and you need to get with the program, you know? And after a while, they have to bring you out of your cell and weigh you and stuff like that.
Right.
And man, I have to really give it to him. Like 3 weeks, not a bite of food, and they still never sold him a fan. We felt so bad after a while. We found a guy that was getting out and we got his fan.
Right. And
we're like, just give it to him, man. He's gonna, you know, I can't imagine being that hungry. Yeah.
Well, you're already basically living permanently hungry. So
I guess
just multiply that. It's hard to think how you guys could just keep gangbanging even amidst all of that. You're like, forget it. Let's just survive, you know? Like, but if you have nothing to survive for, which a lot of people don't.
And you get caught up in your pride and you don't want to be an X because an X is right down there, lowest of the lows. Right. You know, you got a hit on you, you got an X on your back. And you just don't want to be that. You know, you want to stick it out. You made a decision. You try to hang in there and stick it out. But you join when you're a teenager. And as you get older, you just mature. It's inevitable that you're going to start learning more about the way the world works and realizing how foolish you've been, that there's no payout to this. It's a terrible return on investment, literally the worst. And you're just ruining your one life that you have to live. Right. That's it. So you just have to like get over your pride and do what's right, which is not to be in a gang, you know, because you realize also like we're just mostly killing ourselves.
Yep.
So why are we doing this? And as many people point out, that the guys at the top all have life sentences.
Yes.
So they have nothing better to do. And this beats playing chess. You know, you can play chess through the mail.
Yeah.
Or you can play real life chess with people's lives.
Right.
And